This will be April 23rd meeting of the Mount Lebanon Resiliency Board. Call to order, roll call, please.
John Vogel.
Here.
Linda.
Husky here.
Lynn.
Lindley here.
Justin. Commissioner Siegler. Greg Warden, staff.
Grace Robb is here.
John Rumble, Chet Wade.
Eric Milliron, present.
Great. As we go to the meeting minutes, they are in front of you. Any comments or questions? If not, will someone make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the citizen comments. Do we have anybody online? Nope, nobody. Next is commission liaison report.
Thank you. So we had a conversation in executive committee a couple weeks ago regarding the vacant property ordinance that was approved through here. So thank you for that. And it's currently with the solicitor, and he is trying to draft it into a piece of legislation that we can eventually discuss and vote on. So that is in the works. So thanks, everybody. So I'm a little concerned that it'll be watered down. So he's very good at his job in the sense that there's never any risk, and that's the idea. But you know, there's also a need to try to make sure things get done. So we'll see. Let's see. I'm trying to think. In the discussion meeting last night, we reviewed upcoming streets to repave. There was a good conversation around the upcoming zoning ordinance. So the planner Ian McMeans is working on an RFP right now. We gave some input last night as to what we want that to look like. The RFP is going to go out sometime this summer, probably with the selection being made on a form in July or August. And that should be a year-long process, but that's going to be a big one. And that's a pretty big, that really shapes the future of the municipality, how we use land, how we develop. And there's a lot to give consideration to in terms of do we want to be do we want to increase density? Do we want to see more growth? What do we want to look like? Do we want to kind of preserve things in amber? Discussions that happen there. I'm trying to think if there anything else came up last night at discussion. Upcoming bond issues. Oh yeah. Thank you. That is a big deal. So some debt came off in the past year, so we have a little bit more borrowing capacity, and we made the decision to do a $7.5 million bond. Some of it is upkeep on about $1 million, $1.6 million is probably upkeep on courts, things of that nature. And then 3.4 million is towards the south parking garage. So in essence, we know that we're going to have some costs into that and trying to get bring that down. And then eventually, I think the hope is to try to partner with some sort of private developer and figure out what we can put back there that's more than just parking, which I think that is, there's plenty of other things in the works, but I think it's generally the idea that we don't want to just put back another parking deck, but see something a little more happen there. But there's a lot of moving parts and remains to be seen. So
Has there been anything official regarding the bank property? I know there was some interest from the township as making that, and I don't want you to talk about something you can't talk about, but if there's something public you can talk about.
I don't believe there is at this point.
Okay.
So hopefully there will be soon.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible. I know that Phil may chop it apart, but if we get anything, or if there's still in the process of it, if there'd be like red line version sent down to us just to see what's done, things like that, we appreciate that.
I think that would be useful. To have another discussion, because I do worry a bit that it'll be something that doesn't have enough teeth to sort of be meaningful. And again, I understand that his job is to mitigate risk, but we also need to make sure that we don't allow standards to decline either.
Yeah. Anything else, Jeff?
Not that I can think of.
Economic Business District Committee. Anything going on?
So we did not officially meet, but we're doing a little bit of
background, pulling together some questions that Eric has graciously offered to call other municipalities and ask to gather some additional information regarding the vacancy ordinance to kind of prepare ourselves for next steps and when we get to the point where we're gonna be unveiling to the public, just to better anticipate what. So.
Yeah, so we have a working document. I think if you guys still have time, we're gonna get together for a few moments after the meeting and go over some of those questions. And then I guess I'll go off to the races and start making those phone calls and getting some of that information pulled together. And we'll pull that together in a way that we can report out to the advisory board what the answers are.
Okay, great. Now, did we have a replacement for our?
Yeah, I mean, what, yeah, you want me to talk about that?
That was her department, right, or was that another committee she was on?
She was on sustainability and local ecology. So Anna Siefkin is no longer with us on this board. I didn't want to speak for her at the last meeting, so I did not. But she is no longer on this board and has been appointed to the zoning hearing board. So she's not on this board any longer. Last night at the, I guess I can let Jeff, they did appoint a new person, and I emailed her today just to
Good.
give her a heads
I
up.
also got in touch, reached out to her last night, but, we, whenever there's a vacancy opening, we review, applications, as a commission, and so we reviewed those, put forward, Elaine Avosevich Lozada, and last night confirmed her at the commission meeting, so she, I don't know if, Elaine's great.
Yeah, I met her at the volunteer dinner.
Okay.
Yeah, she's great.
Wonderful. Yeah, she's long been, she was with County Economic Development for a long time, has been involved in different volunteer capacities.
Yeah, she was on the Economic Development Council, so I served with her on that. I don't know if, John, you were on the EDC at that time?
Yeah, I think I was on the EDC, because when I saw it, I said, I know this name.
Yeah, she served on the Economic Development Council. She's very active in the community, as Grace just alluded to. So I think she'll be a fantastic addition. So I think the commission did great work.
It would be a wonderful addition to the sustainability and local ecology,
Yeah.
because it's going to be a pretty small group.
Yes.
Well, we will, Historic Preservation Committee.
Phil's out of town, no updates, in our department. We are still waiting on a response from the, SHPO, our State Historic Preservation Office on the property on Beverly Road. About what the consulting firm over there is going to do to sort of mitigate the effect of those telecommunications poles that they're going to add. So haven't heard anything back from the SHPO. Takes ages. So
Now, with these poles, what are they, now they're in front of what, the Barriers building?
they were going to be attached to
Of the embassy.
Yeah, the embassy, like the side of the building frontage a little bit. But both because of the existing ordinance and also because of the adverse effect that we noted and the Historical Society noted, we put forth a recommendation to not continue the work unless they mitigate the effects to the SHPO. And the SHPO will probably concur, but they have to do their due diligence and go through everything, and it takes months usually for that sort of stuff to come back down. So.
Now, what is the, for the benefit of the rest of the board, what is the mitigation effort?
So the mitigation could be something like a sort of screening that could take place. Now, I'm not sure how this works with the ordinance in place. Because of the ordinance, there might not be a mitigation that could occur. I'm not entirely sure in that.
Yeah, I don't
field,
even
but-
think it would pass muster with that's where we had,
Yeah.
Bill met with Rodney Sarver, our chief building inspector, and myself, and just for Bill's edification and to pass on to the committee, that more than likely the way our ordinance is written, it probably wouldn't pass from our code enforcement from Rodney. So we'll see where this plays out, but this is their second attempt at trying to get cellular technology on that building. It's a contributing historic structure. My recollection is what they were looking to install would architecturally fit in. It's masked, so it wouldn't be like some sort of microwave looking facility on top of this building.
Yeah.
But it still is of tremendous substance and would be highly visible to residents all in the western regions of the district off of Beverly Road there. So we'll see where it plays out to Grace's point, but it is a little bit of a time consuming process. And then at the end of the day, and they ought to be aware of it because this is their first rodeo. We probably wouldn't approve it anyway.
What is the objection? I know architecturally and the size, et cetera, but is there another alternative? This is a source of additional telecommunications for the residents in the building?
It's cellular towers, as as we all know, like they will
So it's
put
not
up.
just, it's not just for residents.
Yeah,
No.
it's like
Okay.
poles that like
Oh,
would
okay,
go,
okay.
that are like attached to the side of the building and they go up quite a lot and there's other apparatuses and things that go along with it. So, yeah, it's not just for the building, it's for like, I guess, municipality, people who are.
Yeah, anybody that has Verizon, AT&T
Yeah.
service, I mean, so, they really try to provide as much coverage as possible, and so that's where the last one that they reviewed was fine, but it was attached to a pole, so there's a lot of smaller units that you don't even notice anymore as you're driving down the road. This is a little bit larger unit. Obviously, it probably has more coverage.
The tower that's across from the high school, that's in someone's front
Yeah.
yard, is that a telecommunications
That's-
tower or electrical or?
That's electrical, yeah.
That's a high voltage.
And that's been here forever.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is strictly primarily cellular technology because they really do try to, and this has been going on for decades. I mean, on South Side, they were doing the same types of things, and that's even more stringent down there because it's a local historic district, so it gets even more
That
difficult.
location is optimum for.
So they're seeking to get that up there because the building is, for Mount Lebanon, it's a taller structure, and so they're always seeking those opportunities. Any skyscraper, mid-rise, that type of thing. So they're always looking for those opportunities, and so they keep pounding on this particular building, and I just don't see it happening.
For context, I just pulled up the specs on it from EBI Verizon. It'd be adding a 77-foot tall pole. I don't know what the circumference is on it. I could look through all the specs, but like that's the size of it. So it's not like a small.
Ground too.
Ground up, so it's not from the top.
Yeah.
So the screen would just add to the mass rather
No,
than
sorry, it is
masking.
77 feet on top of the existing 86-foot building.
Oh,
So yeah, that's like, sorry, I had to double check there in the EBI
Air
document.
traffic too.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like a
it's-
7-story building
Yeah.
yeah.
on an 8-story building.
So, I'm no expert in this, but my sense is that the coverage around Mount Lebanon is spotty.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it does have to do with the geography of the land. I know there's been quite a few issues in the past with telecommunications towers. It's been like the primary thing around here.
Well, right, and so I'm not proposing this, but I know that there have been places in other communities where they have made them look like other things. They look like bell towers, they look
Yeah.
like.
And that's what they're doing here.
Castle Shannon.
Yeah, there is like for context, when they came forward in the past, a few years back, there wasn't necessarily an effort to sort of provide a screening. In the proposal they sent forth a few months ago, there is a screening that takes place that does blend with like the color and some of the elements of the building, et cetera. But from Phil's expertise and then from others like in the Historical Society, et cetera, because they put forth their own opinion as well, it still was not enough to mitigate the size of it. And then, I mean, not barring again, there's the ordinance here, then that also is, existing, but there was an effort made, I suppose, to sort of screen it. From my understanding, it was like a literal screen type situation that was
Yeah, it
going
read like,
across and around
so it's
it.
a masonry building and it read like masonry.
Yeah.
But it's not, but I think, aside from that, so they did make that effort, but again, it's the massing of it. It's just the sheer massing and that's hard to obscure.
It's, and then what, anybody knows is, what are like the owner's rights to have it there, or Verizon's rights to have it? If they-
Well, the reason that that we have the ability to comment on this. The reason that they sent us contact in the first place as we are a consulting party is because they are using at least even 1 cent of federal money. And because there is federal money being used in the construction of it through Verizon, the consulting firm, et cetera. Therefore, it's, taxpayer money that's being contributed. So we have a right, any interested party, consulting party, government, business, et cetera, has a right to sort of comment on the adverse effects that it could make upon a contributing historic property. So because of that, funding aspect, that's why we are able to have a right to, and they're not just able to do whatever.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, they're
They,
fine.
they had the, now let's assume there wasn't any federal money, because sometimes you always hear entities saying, well, you do this and you have to listen because there's federal money. And they're responsible, what if we don't take federal money?
Yeah.
Maybe it would be impractical, but it would still be subject on these things to zoning laws.
Yeah, they still the ordinance and zoning laws,
Yeah,
of
they
course,
can't
they're
have-
subject
Well,
to.
again, that's where it gets back to, I mean, Grace's team may have said, this is the best thing since salt butter, we're for it, let's do it. It would come to the municipality and Rodney's review, and it doesn't pass with our current.
Does it not pass because of the historic piece, or if they went to 2 buildings up, that one of them was not an historic building?
It has, it has to do with the
Understand.
use.
Got it.
Yeah, it has to do with the use, so it's not like an addition, well, it isn't a bit like that, so it's an addition to the building, and so our zoning review allows us then to look at that. So the same as if they wanted to put an addition on the apartment building, the owner wanted to do that, we would review it, and if it doesn't match what the code in that zoning district calls for, then we can deny it.
So it actually is potentially 2 violations of code in that area, the historic.
Well,
Piece,
technically,
yeah,
the
general.
historic preservation part of it isn't a code because in Mount Lebanon, we aren't an enforceable like historic preservation district. Other places you have to get approval for if you're a historic property, like changing your mullions on your windows or whatever. So technically, if there wasn't this ordinance here, a consulting firm could sort of say something like, we don't care, and they could just keep moving forward with it, like they technically have the ability to. There's no enforcement in terms of section 106 of the federal law. You can just get a strongly worded letter from the government saying, stop doing this, essentially.
The volumes on your windows.
Yeah, well, in
In other places, not in Mount Lebanon.
No, that's,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
local, what we have is a national district designation. That there's no sticks with that, only carrots.
So I was just wondering,
When you
is this
get into-
something that can come up again in another month? Because they say, okay, we'll go to another location in Mount
No,
Lebanon.
Yeah, that's a whole other ball of wax. Yeah, that's a local historic district like the city has, like Southside or Mexican War Streets, where you have to go to a local review committee, it has to go to the historic review committee downtown, all that kind of stuff. Homestead has what they're called harbs. We do not have that at all. What we have is the National Historic District, which gives us a lot of benefit, but it doesn't, there's no.
There's no enforcement power in
Right.
terms of a local thing here, which gives homeowners and property owners the ability to, do a lot with their property without having to go through all the legal stuff. So
Yeah.
there's benefits on both sides.
Back down to, anything else for historic preservation? Sustainability and local ecology.
As you've heard, we're now a committee of 1. We have been trying, Anna and I have been trying to get together with Commissioner Ziegler and others. There's been some scheduling conflicts. So we're now on for Friday morning at 8, I believe, to strategize how to reinvigorate the committee. We're hoping our new member would love to join the committee, but we really believe we need to recruit some more volunteers to help us flesh out the kind of legwork that needs to be done on this committee.
I had talked to Anna about this at the end of last meeting.
You want to be on the committee?
Yeah, so.
Awesome.
You're committed too. See, look at it, it's already problem solved.
Yeah, Anna and I actually.
It doubled in size.
Anna didn't say anything about leaving, but yeah, Anna and I talked about
Okay.
half
So
hour at
we
the
are
end of last
going to have
meeting about
coffee
it.
at 8 o'clock, and yeah, that won't leave to, I'm trying to do sunshine law here, but yeah, that will still be good if you join. And Anna, I think, is still planning to join, and she's no longer on, So it'll still be good by, Sunshine Law.
Right, and I'll just say now, and but yeah, any of these subcommittees, you are able to bring on anybody you want to.
Yes.
You don't have to get my permission or Commissioner Siegler's permission. You can put on anyone you want at any time.
Well, and I think what we're talking about is working with, the township's communications team to promote that idea, rather than just knocking on doors. We know a few people, we don't know enough people to make that effective. Or putting up things on, utility poles, that kind of stuff. We're not going to do that. So we were talking to Laura and, and she was on at our meeting last time, and she was very eager to do that, but we don't want to just run off and do that without.
Fair.
Yeah, a small thing, now, I thought when we had the one thing, Phil said when we did the presentation, how these committees ran, that something wasn't subject to sunshine.
If we don't have a quorum.
You don't have a quorum, I thought there was something else like with subcommittees weren't. But I'll ask Phil, but, yeah, I mean, I've had the debate, my friends, where it's like, okay, a committee of one, no, it's not a committee.
Right.
Committee of two gets a little, it's, difficult, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, the way we have it structured, the way it was structured is there's 9 people. Each committee that we currently have has 3. That's fine. I think it's when you get to 4 board members on it that you're getting into sketchy territory.
Yeah.
So you can have 3 advisory board members on each subcommittee. And that's the cap on that. But in terms of anyone that you want to draw in for their acumen on a particular issue or whatever
And
that
they're
is,
free.
that you could have 1 billion people if you want, there's no limit on that. And it sounds to me like what, Chet's point is, how do we source those people without knocking on doors, be like, hey, I understand you love sustainability. You buy Dr. Bronner's soap, want to join us on a committee? I think you're probably looking for a more
Right.
strategic, plan.
Right, we had one volunteer who's great, and she has a very strong interest in solar. But until, we really didn't have a big, when we looked at the comprehensive plan, that wasn't one of the things we had chosen as a first priority. So we had talked, for example, I did a little background work on interest in when we do renovations of streets. We completely, more than just sort of pave them, putting the conduit in so that in the future, we might be able to do underground utilities for, reliability issues, other purposes. So I did a little background work on that, but then, there's like, that's me. We also looked at, are there other ways to incent people on stormwater reduction? We're not here to propose huge multi-million-dollar stormwater projects, but for example, if you want to get a credit for stormwater reduction, you need to get a plan with a professional engineer's seal on it. That seems like a lot. That's a pretty big hurdle for someone who wants to tear up some paving, put in a rain garden, and reduce the flow off their property. So we talked to them about that as another potential project. But, at that point, I tried to contact Rudy about the one project. I never connected before the holidays, and then just kind of sent since then. So we could use more people who, 1, have interest in some of these topics, and 2, can help do some of the legwork so that we can turn over something fully vetted ultimately to the commission, who then can, whatever needs to be done, route it back to the solicitor, et cetera. But it's more than me just saying, hey, commissioners, how about this?
Yeah, of course, but noting that, not going door to door and is not the optimum thing. I mean, what are to get more people on it? What have you thought? I mean, is anybody thinking to do that? Is it,
Well, this is anything, even just Laura putting a note out in one of the multiple township publications saying this, this committee exists, reminder, if you have an interest in it, and like to volunteer, we would like to have.
it's the magazine or the emails. Or
Yeah,
do they still
Media.
still have the station anymore?
Yes, we saw the cable station, yes.
And she started a
And believe it or
podcast,
not,
right?
people watch that. I apologize, sorry.
She started a podcast too, right? Or is-
Yeah, we do a podcast, and that could be a great way to amplify that. And I think you would do it, my sense is if we're gonna do that, we would want to do it for more than just sustainability. We would want to open that up. And maybe that goes to the 5 advisory boards too. So it's some kind of, we would have to work with Laura and strategically plan how it's amplified, but more importantly, what we're amplifying and what the channels are, almost akin to when you're applying to be on an advisory board as a voting member. Maybe it's not as rigorous, but there's some process, otherwise you're just.
So somebody doesn't say anything unusual and everybody's like, how did this come about?
Well, yeah, like, you and John and Linda apply and you get it and Linda doesn't, and Linda wants to know why. I mean, we need to have ability, or somebody, needs to be able to say, well, this is why, or these are the steps we took, because then otherwise it just smacks to me of being sort of obligatory and just, we want to avoid any notions of favoritism or any of these things. So I think there would have to be some kind of a process. I don't think it has to be incredibly rigorous, but I think there has to be some sort of vetting process, so that people can apply to be on the sustainability board. Maybe it's just a couple of paragraphs or, a resume and why they would like to serve on this committee. And then we would have to, it's already in the handbook, if you will, for all the advisory boards, but pull that out and just make people clear that they're not a voting member. They're providing information to the voting members to bring it to the advisory board to then ultimately bring it to a commission decision point, and that sort of thing. So we'll just need to, messaging is going to be important.
Right, and then we're working off the comprehensive plan. It's not
No,
just like we're dragging.
Yeah, we're not coming here conjuring.
Follow this, and that's what we're doing.
Is it too quick to think we could do something in time for, is it next week where we've got the public meetings?
Oh, we won't have anything pulled together by then. I was going to be honest. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's
there's
fine,
no way.
that's fine.
But with that being said, and what Lynn's talking about is we're having the Activate Uptown thing, and I'll talk about that later in more detail, but we have a public session next Tuesday where people that are, if you show up to that, you're generally probably going to be interested in that stuff. So that would be I don't say shooting fish in a barrel, but you're getting people there that are already interested enough to come out on a evening and spend time discussing things. Those are probably the people that you would want populating. Right?
Yes, and I mean, I'm just thinking about some things that are in our rearview mirror, but the Easter egg hunt and the Martha's Run that just happened last 2 weekends. I know there are other things coming. I just can't think beyond next week, so.
Yeah, no, but that's fair, but there has to be strategy, because one of the things I think that the municipality is trying to avoid is what happened in previous advisory board circumstances where things kind of went rogue. And, people were just tabling at things and because again, keep in mind, you are public officials, so especially in this group. So we had people going out representing the municipality, I think saying it was a municipal position when it wasn't. So we're trying to avoid that, and I think anything that starts to go down that slippery slope, we're just trying to catch now so that we don't end up in that. Not saying that going to Martha's Run or something would be
No,
rogue, but
Right.
But if we did that, we would need to get manager approval. And then also to Chet's point, stuff like that, letting people know this is based on the comprehensive plan. This is how the advisory structures work. So I think that's the devil's always in the details on how we do that. But I don't think this is a heavy lift, and I think it's a fantastic idea.
That's all from the committee of now two.
Doubled in size.
This rate's gonna be huge by the end of the
I
night.
know, you're gonna ask for a reduction in committee size.
Staff liaison report.
Sure, well, I'll kind of kick off with some things I think will be of interest to the crowd watching as well as in the room. And then offer any, we can just open it up to any questions. So everybody's always interested in businesses that are opening and where they're at and various things. So I always like to talk about that. So that's the fun stuff. That's the fun part of my job. So I'll start with Toasty because I get a lot of questions about that. If you walked by it on the way to this meeting, you will see there has been tremendous progress. The facade is looking fantastic. Speaking of fenestration, using architectural lingo, meaning a window. New windows are in, new doors. Their equipment is now sitting in one of the new windows, so they are well on their way. The green wall is up inside, so they should be open pretty much on target for May. I will be sending out an email to everybody for when their opening is. They really do want to have a line out the door, not just to help pay for some of these extensive renovations in the space, but also it's just a good way to launch things and they want to see a big turnout for the opening day. So I'll notify you of that. I do not have a date now, but it is imminent. So, and again, that's high-end toast, fresh juice, fresh smoothies. They have sandwiches. It should be pretty fantastic.
Eric, quick interruption on that. The second door going downstairs, that,
Yeah, so that
is that
is,
included?
yes and no. So yes, in that it's going to be, not going to look like it does now.
That was the real question.
Yeah, I figured, I didn't want to read into where you were going, but I did. Yeah, no, that is going to be replaced. So if, a lot of people don't know about that space. It's very odd and unusual. So when it was Steel City Ballroom, which was on the lower level, the first level had been vacant for decades. It's been quite a while. But the lower level had been Steel City Ballroom. It was an active business, which is no longer there. But when you would walk into the building prior to this renovation, there was a stairway right when you would walk in. Not a good look. And that's what would give you access to the lower level. With these renovations, they bifurcated that. So that's an entrance strictly for that lower level, which is going to be leased. And it'll be cleaned up and tightened up. So they'll have their own dedicated entryway into Tostique, but then that second door that we're talking about will be the entry to the lower level. So yes, that will be corrected shortly. Vintage Remains, which is the little shop side of Vinyl Remains, which has had other really cool pop-ups. If anybody's had a chance to go to those throughout the month. A lease has been signed. I don't think I'm still able to really say much about what it is, but very shortly I will be able to, but I'm very excited about that tenant. I mentioned it at the last meeting, but lease is signed. That is effective May 1. It will be retail. And very excited for that when we can officially announce that. But it's somebody that's been trying to get on the street for a long time. And she's very stoked to be here, and it's really going to be a fantastic contributing business. And hopefully I'll soon be able to say what it is.
You can say what it rhymes with, I assume. Just, no.
I'll not do that. The Fabric Place store, oftentimes, if you know anything about real estate marketing, they'll leave that for lease sign up there as long as they possibly can. But a lease, if it hasn't been executed, will be very shortly. I've spoken to the tenant broker as well as the property owner and others. Everything is moving along, and I anticipate that a lease will be signed. It'll be a long-term lease. There's going to be significant renovations to the building. Everything including a new roof that the property owner is going to be putting on. So we're talking about a significant investment in the district there. Again, I can't speak to anything about it yet. I apologize. I'm not trying to be coy or playing poker here with you guys, but there are NDAs and things, and I have to be respectful of that. But if it's not a signed lease, it will be very shortly, I anticipate, and I should hopefully be able to announce what.
Sorry, I keep interrupting the what space?
No, sorry, when you live and work on the street every day, you start to speak in code. It's what was the Fabric store, the Fabric Place? It was by Celtic Cross.
Okay.
Over on the other side, almost like cat a corner from us.
Okay.
So it's essentially a vanilla box. When it was a fabric store, it was retail.
It was there
Upwards of about 30 years. She retired.
Going enough.
Yeah, well, now you can't, so you're out of luck. Enjoying Fabrics is closed, so I don't know where you buy your fabric.
Joanne Horn, there's another place in Mount Lebanon.
Gloria Horn.
Gloria Horn, yeah, but that's not so much fabric as it is
Sewing and
machines and lessons, and people come from all over to go there. I mean, it's
they have some commercials.
Oh, yeah, it's legit. I mean, like they run, people don't realize, I mean, if you're not into that.
Front.
No.
Money laundering though.
No, I mean, they sell very high-end sewing
It's like the
machines
mattress
and
factory.
sergers and all kinds of stuff if you're into the fabric arts, but they do a very robust business over there on Castle Shannon. But yeah, this was a fabric retail shop. She sold fabric. But now she's retired, and it's gonna be something else. But that's moving along, and hopefully by the next meeting, I can announce what that actually is. And then on Beverly Road, of course, everybody wants to know about F&F Pizza. If you've been on Beverly Road, I don't have to tell you what's going on. And if you haven't been on Beverly Road a lot, they're really humming along. So somebody's excited, yay. So, yeah, so that, I anticipate that to be a very popular and successful business.
They put their new windows in too.
Yeah, that's great.
The-
Fenestration everywhere.
Out the wazoo.
Fenestration at the wazoo and mullions like you won't believe. Yeah, a lot happening. I mean, there's a lot of very, very positive things happening and we want to keep it that way. And, but anyway, so that's moving along. They're still looking to open up in the summer. West Banco still is in play on that street, but candidly, I don't want to say I'm okay with that. I'm not. I'd love to see an active business in there. But there's going to be a lot happening over on Beverly. It's only 300 linear feet. So there's going to be a lot happening over there. So I'm going to take the good things that are going on and off we go with that. Lynn mentioned the Activate Uptown session. So next Tuesday, there is an 8 a.m. session that's really, I don't want to say it's invite only, but it's really designed more for businesses and property owners that can't make the evening meeting that day. If you want to attend that, you're more than welcome to, and anyone that is watching this at home, you're welcome to come. So next Tuesday, the 29th of April, there will be an 8 a.m. session in this room, which is conference room C on the first floor of 710 Washington Road. Patrick will be here with fleshed out concepts based on surveys, steering committee work, as well as the first public session we did in October. So you'll get to see the refinements on that and development on that. The evening is really the one that we've been promoting more. That's going to be at 6 p.m. to roughly 8 p.m., depending on the crowd. That will be at Howard Hanna's building like it was in October. That's going to be in their conference room, which is right off of Clearview Common. Again, Patrick will be there with multiple stations on the different nodes that we're focused on, which again is Clearview Common in the Alfred Street area, Parsway, and then Clock Tower Plaza. And as I affectionately refer to it as the portal, but it's basically a stairway. So various concepts and ideas on activating these spaces. I'm pretty happy with where things are. And just so everybody knows, these are high-level conceptual renderings. We are not going to be breaking ground on anything in the foreseeable future, but it is getting us to a point where we can get opinions of cost on various aspects of improvements, where we can discuss with the commission and the steering committee and this body and others how we want to proceed. What I will say is that it's going to be in phases and stages. So there are some things that we're going to be able to do almost immediately. You may even be able to see, and I'm hoping you're going to see some of the results from this study take place even this summer. So that's my hope. Some things will be discussed and vetted for the 2026 budget, with some emphasis probably on the clock tower area, just because it's the least disruptive. And then some others are going to require a lot more work. Anything related to the transit station in Parsway, because that is mostly owned by Pittsburgh Regional Transit. We're going to need their involvement. Been following the news. I don't have to tell you, PRT is not in a good way right now. So, you know, that's a major factor that needs to be front and center in mind as we're proceeding with things, because we do not have site control over vast swaths of the Parsway corridor.
Is there, so I've heard about PRT partnering with Dormont on a potential development. Are there any properties PRT has in Mount Lebanon?
No.
That would be potential?
No. What we have, not that PRT owns, this actually probably could be a longer discussion at a future meeting, but Mount Lebanon owns the air rights over the light rail station. We bought those back in Reagan's first term, 1982. So we own the air rights. We also own, a lot of people don't know this, but the municipality owns what we affectionately refer to as the Kiss and Ride lot, the Kiss and Ride parking lot, which is along Shady. And right now that's sort of a fuzzy area for a lot of people. A lot of people think it is PRT. It's not. We actually own that. We have an agreement with PRT to use it for parking, but we own it. This really could be a much longer discussion. I'll try to be very succinct. We've done a number of studies on this area, everything from preliminary engineering for building over the light rail to some market studies, which are now probably well past their prime. And we have even gone as far as to put out a national RFP to develop that property. We only had one response, and it was for developing the kiss and ride lot. And we reneged on that for a number of reasons, which I could get into. But suffice to say, there's basically a high density option, which is developing, that's the whole enchilada, that's developing the air rights, that's the whole thing. The low density option, as we refer to it as, is developing the kiss and ride lot. That's what the developer responded to and wanted to build a essentially a low mod income senior project. We reneged on it for a number of reasons at that time. We're going back almost a decade. One, it wasn't particularly catalytic for what we were hoping to do with that site. But probably more importantly, if we develop the kiss and ride lot, it makes any other high density development radically more difficult, because exponentially more difficult, because you're now taking away lay down areas. It just would have further complicated and make an already very difficult development project that much more difficult. So at the time we said, we're going to pause this, we're going to put it on the back burner and revisit at another time. And it also has to go down to the market, right? I mean, is Pittsburgh's market at such a point now that a project that complex and expensive? That's the other thing. It had a $20 million development gap. And I'll repeat that, $20 million development gap. That's after throwing in something called a TRID, which is a creative financing tool very similar to a TIF. Again, we can talk a long time about this, but it didn't make sense. So we put it on the back burner, waiting to see where things played out. If Pittsburgh was going to blow up like Austin, now may be the time to bring this back up. We're still not there yet. Developers can find much better, easier development pads such as Dormont than Mount Lebanon, candidly. Plus, we also have an opportunity with the South Garage that would accomplish a lot there without having to work over an active rail line. So there's a lot to it. And I know I'm being very brisk here, but there's a lot to talk about and to unpack, but I wanted to answer your question as thoroughly as I could. But yeah, we know they don't, but we do. And we partnered with PRT. We have a very good relationship with them. If something made sense and presented itself, we would certainly be all ears, but at this point, not so much. So back to Activate Uptown. And then there's various proposals that you will see related to Clearview Commons. Some are very bold and big and will change a lot in that area, and some not so much. So there are some things that are in the not so much column that we could implement, waiting on funding and other things for larger improvements that we can do now to make Clearview Common better than it is. But some of the concepts you would see are bold and would require some seismic shifting of traffic patterns and uses. So come on Tuesday night, and you will see all of these ideas. After we have these public sessions, it'll essentially go back to the steering committee. Grace and Kirill from this body sit on that, as well as other design committee members from the partnership, as well as members of PRT and others. So we'll discuss that, but we're really winding this down. This needs to be wrapped up by June, and it will be wrapped up by June because we have grant money in play here. But what we'll get out of this is all these concepts, staging of how we can proceed with phasing, and again, opinions of cost on all the various elements, so that we can make decisions based on dollars and cents, as well as public input and commission's desire to do or not do various things. Does anybody have any other questions about commercial district stuff?
Is there more to your report?
As far as I'm concerned, no.
All right, student liaison report.
Okay, so, two seniors in my class got American Legion Awards. One for music excellence and the other for academic excellence. Scene's esports team won the Community College of Allegheny County, their esports invitational. That was the first time they participated in that tournament. And the club was started a few years ago and they came in first place, so they're 1-for-1. We had our spring concert. Our spring concert for band, choir, jazz, and other stuff will be tomorrow night. And the prom is next Thursday, May 1st at the Omni William Penn in downtown. So that should be really nice. I'm looking forward to that. And other than that, that's it.
We
So,
want pictures of the prom.
Yeah.
We want pictures of the prom.
all right, I'll grab some pictures. And
Send us some
then,
pics, man.
don't worry. And then the last thing I have is that Seton's hosting a literature festival for all the Catholic schools in the area. So a bunch of kids will come into Seton and they'll play a bunch of games and compete with each other for who read the book the best, basically. So that should be interesting.
Awesome.
How long do we have left with you?
A good question. I'd say a couple more meetings. I was gonna
You
start.
graduate,
Huh?
you graduate, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're gonna graduate.
I mean,
I
hopefully
hope. I
this.
mean, you're accepted in college, so at this point, who cares?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can blow it all on now.
Where were you going to school? Where are you going to school?
I'm going to Gettysburg College.
Great.
So, yes, I am planning on graduating in 13 or like 30 days, give or take.
How many minutes? Okay.
That's a great question. I don't know that. So that's my plan.
So you'll be here next meeting?
I will be here next meeting. That's what I was getting to. I lost my train of
No,
thought.
no problem.
But I was gonna, at the end of the school year, I was debating whether or not to call it quits. But I think I'm gonna keep going for just
Okay.
maybe a little bit of the summer and
And you can
then
always commute down from Gettysburg to stick with us.
I'll consider.
You can zoom in.
Oh, good point.
I'll keep raising my hand every.
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
Glad we get to have the fair few.
Yes.
I mean, with that, I will mention principals report from Steve, that was, which I think is hilarious, so. I will embarrass you after the cameras are off, so. And let's see, is, any
That's
more
it.
for your report?
Nope.
Thank you.
Old business, election of officers May.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up. So, I'm just trying to stick to what a precedent. So we elected officers last May. It makes sense to do it again this May. So we do have a new member, and out of respect for her, I'd like to have her at the meeting. So this is an opportunity to put your hat in the ring if you would like to be the chair or vice chair. Those are really the two offices that are up. And we'll have that vote at the next meeting. Obviously, it's that cut and dry. Just want to keep it up here. So if anybody's interested in seizing the reins of power,
Keep
Are you
reins of
expecting
power.
it?
You have to fight John for it.
yeah, we can do arm wrestling, whatever. We can do
Exactly.
trivia, however we want to vet that, but.
Well, the Virginia way, don't they pick jelly beans out of a jar? They have to
Yeah.
get how many are in the jar or something?
Okay, but we could go to a vote on it if
Is
you'd
the time-
like.
Draw a card, draw
Yeah.
lots.
We have a motion for jelly beans.
Second.
I'll do it again.
That'd be fantastic.
Recommendation of the commission to proceed with the joint power purchase agreement for the installation of solar panels on municipal facilities.
So I kind of hinted on this last meeting, but kind of still in that legal phase of things. We're looking to hopefully have them back in June, I think. But yeah, just like we kind of discussed last meeting, just looking for a recommendation from the board to kind of, have the commission proceed with this. And I can have any questions answered. I have an insider with the PA Solar Center. While he's working with the PA Solar Center, and Grace also has an inside with him as well. So
i.e. her husband.
Yeah.
So, but, yeah,
So
Funny here.
Are you looking for that vote tonight?
yeah, that'd be great.
And, I mean, is there some reason we should not? I mean, you gave us information last meeting.
I mean, I don't think there really is a reason not to recommend. The information's been presented to the commission. Pretty sure the commission said like, don't come back without, pretty much a finalized document. They said like, the next time we want information back, it's gonna be like sign the paper and things like that. So this is just more of a formal recommendation from the board to kind of give it a little bit more fluff, so to speak.
Yeah, we're not fluff, we're
So what are you looking for from us tonight?
Just right there, recommendation,
So
so,
you would need a formal vote from us.
Yeah.
Would someone like to make that?
I would so move to provide a recommendation from our board to go forward with the joint power purchase agreement that was presented to us previously.
Second for anybody? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Extension.
There it is.
For the sake of my husband being as part of it,
That's
just for
absolutely fine.
taking things above.
Don't support him.
I just-
Okay, well, the recommendation is made. So
thank you.
Proceed. Anything under new business?
Our 1 year anniversary as a board.
Oh.
So we started in April last year.
Yeah, champagne's in the,
Yeah.
in the staff break, but
But
we
we
can't get
can't.
it.
Yeah,
So,
this is why we like this. So.
Under new business, I have a long-running frustration with the condition of certain of a fair amount of properties in Uptown. I think that there's clearly some deferred maintenance going on. I mean, it's amazing the amount of new businesses that are coming. I mean, obviously it's an incredibly successful district. Simultaneously, there's a lot of unsightly problems and a lot of just bad signage and buildings that haven't been maintained well, and it's just been a frustration of mine with it that I think Uptown should be immaculate. I think it should be gorgeous considering the health of the neighborhood and kind of the world. The public sector is certainly invested highly in Uptown, and I think that you can make a reasonable assumption that the economics should be pretty good for people to maintain their buildings and make improvements, yet some continue to be in a condition that I think is beneath the standard it should be. So I've been trying to figure this out. I mean, obviously the vacant property ordinance is one, and we'll see what happens there. But I've been talking with Eric a bit and some of the other commissioners. I think that we need to start to look at some design standards to have some things in place that say you have to maintain to this level. You can't have handwritten signs or whatever, like, you can't have broken glass, or not to say that there is that, but there's a lot that needs to be fixed. So been talking again about that, and I think Eric has a little more insight into what that process looks like that we might take, but something that I hope that we can all that this board can get behind and hopefully help develop or be supportive of what of that. But Eric, if you would mind kind of filling in the details.
yeah, so, and Jeff's right, we've been talking about this, and there's been a number of things percolating, and I'll try to talk about this in two ways. So there's there are the incentives. So the municipality has put a significant chunk of change on the table for facade grants. And so we drafted facade grant guidelines. Those are, as far as I'm concerned, complete. So there's a package there. So there's facade grant guidelines and an application process. We are using a facade grant review committee that's pretty much now in place, which is members of the Mount Lebanon Partnership Design Committee. So there's a few members from that committee that'll serve on this committee, this facade committee. So you have Paul Ostergaard, who will be serving on that. Kate Irvin, who is the executive director, will be serving on that. I'll be serving on it. But most importantly, Paul has this acumen, but we're also brought on 2 architects. So there's essentially 5 folks that are subject experts in reviewing facade renovations that'll be reviewing applicants. So to avail themselves of the facade grant program. So essentially, it's a dollar for dollar match, up to $5,000 for business and property owners to make improvements. There's also a carve out from the big chunk of change for smaller scale projects, what I'll call a micro grant. So you may have a strong facade, but it needs a coat of paint. So that's where you could avail yourself of a micro grant. So there's some flexibility in there so that you can do various things to make various improvements to the facades. So that's the incentive part of it.
Did those, I'm sorry, did those go to the business owner, the people who are renting? Like, is it generic facade improvements? Like if they borrow, if it's a Mexican restaurant, they borrow $5,000 to help make it look like a Mexican restaurant. A year later, they go out of business. You spent $5,000 to.
Well, that's a great question, John. So it's really meant, so the facade grant's really meant to make substantial, the intent of it is to make substantive improvements to the facade regardless of who's in there. So 9 times out of 10, and I've managed 2 or 3 different facade grant programs, it's generally the property owners that go for that type of coin. Sometimes the tenant may push for that because they want to see that. And the property owner may say, yeah, that's fine. You're gonna pay for it. But, you know, so that's more structural improvements. So new fenestration, new windows, I'll stop using that word. One more. So it could be fenestration. It could be.
Or windows.
Or windows. It could be repointing brick. It could be many different things. And that's where the facade grant, that's why you really want to have a good facade review committee so that they can make those sorts of determinations. Because there's not an unlimited supply, you're roughly 20K. So that doesn't go very far, right? So you want to be very strategic on how those dollars are used, right? So that's where the facade review committee is important. The micro grants are more to that point. It's a Mexican restaurant. They would like to use maybe some colors that match the Mexican flag or whatever the case may be. They went Day of the Dead type motif, whatever it might be. That micro grant is more specific to that. Or maybe they want to even put in, like if you've noticed, the topo has music that plays, things like that. So it can be used in creative ways. That gives you that flexibility. They want to do something fun and funky. They'd like to, and if it makes sense, you know, we can help offset that cost. Again, it's a dollar for dollar match, so they have skin in the game. So I hope that answers the question, but and a lot of this is predicated on probably the second point is, so in 23, we wrapped up a design guideline package. So we wrote a grant to PHMC, Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission, to bring on a consultant called Landmarks SGA to work with the partnership on developing design guidelines, which are really used as the primary North Star document for the facade grant program. But it was designed intentionally to be beefier than that. So its current use right now kind of sits on the shelf waiting for facade grant applications to come in and have that as a document to use to make decisions. But it can be much more than that. So at the time when we completed those design guidelines in 23, we made a presentation to the commission. And the commission did not adopt, nor did it wasn't a thumbs up, thumbs down. It was more of a discussion session for edification to the commission. However, that document could be incorporated more into other aspects of what goes on here in Mount Lebanon related to design, getting to Jeff's point. Where I think that really, the rubber really hits the road on that is when we're in the midst of the zoning and saldo refresh that we're going to be embarking on in the next number of months. You know, we have an opportunity to use this document, and it's a very good document. I'm happy to share with anybody who would like to see it. I think it's on the partnership website, but I think it says draft, but it's really not the draft. Partnership's redoing their website, so it'll be better. But so that we have a document already that was vetted through the process that we went through at that time, and through the partnerships design committee and their board, and then again was presented to the commission, who liked it, but there was no action taken. So I think what would make sense at this point is to take a look at that. And it would strike me that it could either be the Historic Preservation Committee, or maybe it's the Economic Development. We can sort that at later. But I think some resiliency advisory participation in reviewing that document and strategizing how that plays into the zoning refresh and other tools that we may avail ourselves of to get to Jeff's dream of a better looking uptown can happen. So we have a document already that's fresh, ready to go. Landmarks did a fantastic job. There's a lot to the document. It's everything from precedent images. It relied a lot on the historic preservation, the historic designation process that the Historic Preservation Board did many years ago. So it's a good document and one that should be used. And that's kind of what we're proposing. So at some point, we're gonna need to sort where that falls in this body. I would imagine it might be one of those ad hoc circumstances. You know, we're gonna be talking about zoning and we're gonna need that participation from this board. This is a point that we want a little additional detail with.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm, through my work, and it's been my experience that aesthetics are the most important factor in the success of a commercial district. That's what people are drawn to. You know, we all, we'll pay more to go to an attractive restaurant. We'll all, travel further to go to a district that is nice, that is aesthetically appealing. And what's sort of my rub is that the taxpayers put a lot of money into Uptown. What was the total cost of the streetscape?
4.2 million.
All right, so, and we're just in the last couple of years, taxpayers put 4.2 million into the district. Again, I have a hard time thinking that some of these properties can't, are not in a financial situation to keep their facade in decent condition. So I like that Eric pointed out, yes, there's been, there's incentives, and I always believe that incentives are the proper way to go first. But what we're dealing with is a lot of clearly some property owners that aren't really motivated by incentive, which is not a surprise at all. That is something I run along, work across the country and see all the time, that they just don't care and they're not motivated by incentives. So you have to be willing to get punitive. And I think we're in a position to justify somewhat of a punitive nature to say, here's what we expect in terms of your facade. We can have a certain standard in terms of windows and signage, et cetera, because that drives the economics, that drives more traffic, that drives more sales, that will drive up property values. I think there's great economic justification for putting those things in place. And there's plenty of research to show that improved design standards leads to higher property values, more sales. So there's good justification. So so what I want to figure out is kind of what route we need to take. Certainly, I think it would be appropriate to have this body's involvement, but what route do we need to take to put something forward, whether it is through zoning, whether it is through, historic district or whatever means necessary. But I think that we would, that the community would benefit and Uptown would benefit by having a little tighter controls around some of those design issues.
Yeah, so this is sort of, I don't want to say it's a pop-up issue, because it's not. I mean, Commissioner Siegler's been interested in this, and I think we all have been interested in this for a long time. But it might warrant some time, perhaps on the next agenda. So what I would do is forward the design guidelines as well as the facade grant package, just so that we're all on the same page, what I'm talking about, because I'm talking to you about this stuff, but you haven't seen it, right? So I'll be sharing those documents with you. You can take a look at them, and you may have questions that pop up just from that. And then we can have a further discussion about what that means. This zoning refresh is important, and it's really, in my mind, the task of these advisory boards, especially this one, to be present during that process and come with fleshed out, teased out, vetted recommendations. And it's never too early to start. And just a sense of timeline, Ian, our planner, is working on the RFP. It's not imminent, it's not happening next month or the month after that, but it's going to be happening in the next number of months. Very well could kick off third, fourth quarter of this year. So now that's going to be its own full process, right? I mean, that's not going to be wrapped up in 30 days. I mean, this is a big deal. So I don't want to make people panic, like we got to have all these things. sorted in 2 months, no. But it's never too late to start, and now's really the time, especially with stuff like this. Because, you know, the law of unintended consequences, and so we want to try to mitigate as many of those as possible, so that whatever we're doing and proposing is beneficial as much as possible.
Eric and Jeff, and thanks for bringing this up. I think this is a good opportunity, as you mentioned, for an ad hoc joint subcommittee between the Partnership Design Committee and this advisory board. And the depth of expertise on the design committee and the data that they have access to through Town Center, you have access to some of it here, Kate Irvin from the Downtown Partnership and the Mount Lebanon Partnership, on the value of revitalizing storefronts, revitalizing first floor facades. And I think that some of that might be helpful. As you mentioned, some of these owners, it doesn't really matter. They're gonna do what they do. But I think that's where some public communications can come into play, because I think if the actual taxpayers see, because it is a worn looking district, I mean, compared to Beverly Road, compared to other districts. And I don't know about other people, but I hear that from people a lot. So I wonder if we also look at what role public communications plays in this to put some pressure on them via the tenants, but also via the taxpayers,
Right.
community too, as part of this plan.
I like shame as a tactic.
Well,
I'm using the stick now.
Yeah, it's a combination. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you incentivize, but you
We'll take
also
that.
have standards that are upheld. And that's where that gets out of, you know, once this, we're building the ship now, but once that ship leaves port and goes over the horizon, then that really becomes an inspections department issue, because they're the ones tasked with enforcement, right? But we need to make sure that it's a sturdy clipper ship and that it gets us to our port of destination in the way we want it to.
yeah, I
And the
mean.
fenestration on that ship, the portholes are gonna be
Shame,
amazing.
esprit de corps can together.
Right, I think so.
I think.
But keep in mind, this is, yeah, I mean, just to be clear, I mean, this is a, yeah, it's a design guideline, so we want people that have acumen with that. Like Paul Ostergaard is phenomenal for that. Paul, if you're watching, but you know, like, there's good talent on that committee, and I think that you're absolutely correct, there's a good opportunity.
Excellent. Let's see, anything else for new business? Announcement, next meeting, time and date. Next board meeting will be Wednesday, May 28th at 6 p.m. All municipal meetings have Zoom webinar component to enable residents to attend meetings virtually. Motion to adjourn? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks.